Hello all, Knife Tale here, bringing you another nice review, and today we're going to be looking at the, I guess, brother of the Ziphius that I once looked at from Wii. This is the Exciton. Exciton? Exciton, I think. We've got a titanium with carbon fiber, button lock in 20CV, in usual Wii fashion, tiny. This was a limited edition, just like the Ziphius. This is 85 out of 205. And it's a dual ground drop point flipper. And I guess, technically, you can use the button. And it's got a reverse looking hole. So, quite a few opening methods. Let's get specs real fast. Blade length on the Exciton is 3 5/8 to this. If you go down to here, it's about 3 1/4 for the plunge. Overall, we're at 8 5/8. 5-inch handle, pretty much on the dot. It's not a huge knife. Moving some things to get to the old graph thing. Compared to the Wii, the sister brand, or I guess sister brand, I don't know. Wii Conspirator, or Civivi Conspirator, Civivi Elementum to the Wii Exciton. As you can see, it is considerably larger than both. That said, it still falls for me into that category of full-size knife, but only just. This is approaching large, just kind of like the Ziphius was. In fact, the Ziphius, I think, felt a little bit larger, and I still consider that one... I don't know if I consider that one a fully large knife. It's kind of on the fence. This one is a full-size knife, but it's long. It is. It's a good size. It's a good size one. Oh, comparison... closed, it is thinner than the Conspirator, and it's not even as tall. So, it's about as tall. Pretty close to it. Not tall at all. Oh, and as I've been doing this in the last couple videos, 2 AA batteries in comparison. As you can see, you're getting considerably more handle. Even in the primary grip, you have basically 2 AA batteries. And blade is almost the same length as the batteries too. So it's a reasonably sized knife. It is not, however, a particularly heavy knife. 3.7 ounces, which is basically 1-to-1 ratios. Pretty darn close. It's not cumbersome at all. Hardware. T8. 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 There are standoffs under there, adding additional strength to this setup. I'm pretty sure they're T8 too. I have not taken this knife apart, and I do not plan to, because it is perfectly set. And it has not come off at all. Perfectly centered. Hopefully that comes across. Thickness of the Exciton. 477 thousandths, so it's thinner than the Conspirator, thicker than the Elementum, but pretty thin overall. Blade stock. I'm going to call that 122.5 because it's directly between 120 and 125. Kind of is what it is. Very, very small edge bevel, probably 20 degrees. I know I've said this before, but I do have to say it more often. I really wish companies would tell us what they're sharpening knives to out of the gate. Like, I'm pretty sure that we in Civivi tend to use 20-degree angles on their knives, but I'm not 100% sure. I really wish they'd tell us, because if I want to just touch up that edge without laying it back, without doing anything like that, I'd like to know what it's at, especially when there's a knife that is thicker, that gets thick quickly. This already has a decent sized edge bevel. I'm assuming it's 20 degrees per side? Maybe not. That seems to be a standard, but if it's not, and it's 25 degrees per side, which, considering the thickness here, and I put a 20 degree, I'm going to massively increase that edge bevel. And I'm going to start going way up, way faster into that blade. I personally like about 18 degrees per side on my knives. 17 degree per side, depending on thickness. Super thin knives can go a little bit higher. I don't mind the 20s on there because it's the geometry. The rest of the geometry supports it. That the extra edge strength is probably beneficial. But I really wish the companies would let us know instead of just making us sort of guess. My guess here is that this is thin as hell. 11 thousandths. If the... Okay, Doc. 11 thousandths, if that. It is hollow ground. With, I think the flat, it's a flat up there, right? It's hard to tell what this forward edge is. It might have a slight hollow, but it's definitely hollow back here. It's mostly closer to flat up here. It is very thin, very slicey. It is a cutter. And it is still pretty sharp. I've had a comment recently from a very frequent washer who I kind of said something that I kind of agree with. Personally, I think Wii's 59 to 61 is a little bit of them playing it safe. A lot of their knives, maybe some of them do fall under that 59, which in 20CV is not good, but a lot of their knives seem to perform towards the 61 or at least high 60s range of that hardness. Their M390, or usually 20CV, does seem to perform better than a lot of other companies. In my personal experience, this 20CV did not perform great at all. I haven't had the problem with 20CV on Wii's or them. So maybe they're just being careful. Maybe they're just sort of buggers. I don't know. But it does seem a little higher, which is a good thing. Of course, we'd still love to see the 60 to 62 become standard, but you're probably getting a decent quality heat treat on this. We are done with the specs, and I've already started transitioning into other things, so let's continue with that. Blade is, as usual, almost sterile, other than those tiny little things that you can't really even see, with the logo on the pivot. And I like Wii's logo. It is abstract enough that it is nice to look at. We've got a sort of a silver, slightly reflective, it almost looks like a stonewash mixed with a bead blast. I don't know which one it is here. It's sort of a silvery bead blast finish. I don't love bead blast on anything but corrosion-resistant knives. 20CV is corrosion-resistant, and this one is actually quite nice. Again, you've got some reflectivity, just a little bit. I like what they did here. I'm okay with this one not being like a satin or something like that, a hand satin or something. This one looks just good. It looks clean. You've got a forward finger choil with the plunge grind ending way here, so, all the life you want out of it. You've got more than enough room. You got jimping up here. Functional jimping that is, despite being a little bit wider, done in such a fashion that it is comfortable. It's not sharp. It's knocked down just enough. The tip is easily accessible due to the thinner or slimmer nature of this blade. It's about in line with the pivot, maybe a little bit higher. No, it's pretty much in line with the pivot. So yeah, it's good. Again, flipper tab, jimped all the way around. very comfortable. Tons of leverage. Great reverse flick. No doubt about that. Again, we've got a button lock, and again, we and Civivi do probably the best button locks. At least in my experience, they are the most reliable. They do a great button lock, and their premium button locks say premium. That is not the fastest drop ever, but a super controlled, super smooth feeling drop with no real stick at all. This thing locks up strong. I have hit it a little bit on the spine. I didn't want to go too far with that. I just misfired it because I was up here. You can misfire when you go too far onto a flipper tab in general. But it's just not... It's kind of harder to do that than just get it to deploy, honestly. The stop position in the open is this, and the button, and this is the stop position in the close. Unfortunately, they didn't use an internal stop pin on this, which they really should have. Because the stop pin hits, can we see a line on this knife? It is super faint, but it is right there. So, despite having all this for the choil, you have this for the lifespan. That is still a considerable amount of lifespans, particularly as thin as this knife is. But again, if I knew what degrees per side this was, it would be a lot safer than if I laid it back to 15 and the edge bevel started getting real big and going up faster than it would normally. It's here. You still got a decent amount of life. You can still probably cut in some, play around with some choil if you ever really need to way up there. But honestly, the plunge is back here. You did this right. If you had our internal stop pins, it would just be perfect. It's not the case, but for a premium limited edition knife that I'm not going to use hard, okay, I'll give you that. This is just almost sort of like a large gentlemanly knife, really. It just looks sleek and elegant. Lending to that is the finish, which is black in this particular case. There are different variants. With this gold pinstripe. I like black and gold juxtaposed next to each other. You've got these holes that serve no purpose other than to be polished and look nice. And you've got a large wraparound carbon fiber backspacer with a built-in lanyard loop thing. And some holes up here just to keep the motif going, I guess. It looks great. Let's just be honest. The ergos are excellent. I will say that the clip is a little bit high on this knife. It's a little closer to the spine than centered, and I like it centered more because you can feel it. You do feel this clip a bit because this knife is so thin. Like the Xiphius, which, you know what, hold on, I'll grab. And we're back. As you can see, the Xiphius is a little bit taller here, and its clip is a little more centered. Which results in the Xiphius being ultimately, as I hit my own finger, a much more comfortable knife than the Exciton. However, basic grip here, it's comfortable. It's when you really start getting to like the push grip that it's not comfortable really at all in my hand. The clip really starts going into me. I can get it comfortable by moving back and orienting the knife a little bit, or just by going up here, which is probably where I'd push grip from anyway. So it's not a big deal, but it could be just a tiny bit better. I mean, I grip this thing mostly up here, so it's not really affecting me, but again, yeah, these are things that could be thought about, but it's not impacting the knife too badly here. Clip is good, works, almost deep carry for a not deep carry clip. One screw, no movement. It's on the smooth carbon fiber, which is, of course, executed quite well, including the side cut that you get to look at. On bearings, great action, pretty good ergos. And again, I cannot stress this enough. Wii does something different with their button locks. That feels like it's got a snappy pop. See? I mean, even just that. Pop. It's not, it's a plunge, but it feels better than most other button locks. Same with this one. It feels like it's got a... I mean, this one you can even hear it. If you really... Pop. Like, that one's got a really crisp pop. These two knives are pretty darn cool, in my opinion. I really like them. I had to grab them. This knife is, at its base, unfortunately because it was a limited edition, they're pretty few and far between. I think you can still find maybe one or two variants in some places. I will try to link them down below. But like the Ziphius, it wasn't super easy to find them. Like, there's only pretty much one variant of the Ziphius that you can find with the flamed backspacer. There might only be one variant of this that you can really even find. This thing, when it was new, came in at $345, which, with all you're getting here, the execution, the quality, yeah, this is a really good premium knife. I definitely would recommend it if it was more accessible. Oh, and I guess they wanted to add a little bit of flaming. This was when I think we started doing some lightning anno, flame anno, plasma stuff. They did it as a little pop on the Ziphius. They did it a little pop on the Exciton. It's nowhere else. I honestly kind of wish it wasn't there. I kind of wish it was just gold, and this was just blue. But it's there. It's not hurting anything. It's not making me like the knife less. It's just unnecessary. So, this is a great knife. I like it. I would say it's worth the money. I would say that if you can find one and you really like the knife, maybe consider scooping it up. Yeah, this is good. I think I've covered everything that there is to talk about on this knife. As you can see, there's the standoffs down there. Standoff, there's one. Just some added rigidity. There is actually internal milling in the titanium. It's super freaking hard to see. There it is. For even more weight reduction, but it's there. The Exciton by Wii. Good knife. Thanks for watching. See ya.